All right, guys, welcome today. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Andrew Jackson's presidency. Okay, we're going to get into chapter 15 notes. Basically, we're going to be talking about two elections today. Okay, we're going to be talking about the election of 1824 and the election of 1828. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. We're going to start off with the election of 1824. In 1824, Senator Andrew Jackson from Tennessee decided to run for president of the United States. The election of 1824 was notable for a couple reasons. All right, first, there were four main candidates, all from the Democratic Republican Party. Okay, so we have four men, all from the same party, running for president. That we definitely don't see anymore. All right, it also was notable because the election of 1824 ended without a clear winner. Okay, so there were four candidates that came from one party. All right, so first we have Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was from Tennessee. He had been a senator in the U.S. Senate. And of course, he was a War of 1812 military hero for his heroics at the Battle of New Orleans. All right, we also have John Quincy Adams. All right, John Quincy Adams is from Massachusetts. He was the current Secretary of State under James Monroe. And of course, John Quincy Adams is the son of John Adams, who is the second president of the United States. We also have William H. Crawford. He was from Georgia. He himself was also a former senator. And at this time, under James Monroe, he was the Secretary of the Treasury. Okay, that spot held, of course, by Alexander Hamilton under Washington. Henry Clay is the fourth candidate. He was from Kentucky. All right. He was also a former senator. So we have three former senators here. And now Henry Clay had moved into the House of Representatives and had taken over the role of Speaker of the House. Okay, so these are our four candidates, all from the Democratic Republican Party, running for president in 1824. Okay, so in the election of 1824, Jackson had won the popular vote, but he didn't win enough electoral votes. So according to the 12th Amendment, the House of Representatives would have to choose between the top three candidates. So the top three vote getters were Jackson, Adams, and Crawford. So the House of Representatives would have to choose between those three men. Okay. So it goes to the House of Representatives. All right. This becomes known as the corrupt bargain. Okay. So Henry Clay hadn't won enough votes to be chosen by the House. But he was in a very powerful position as Speaker of the House to persuade the House to elect Adams. All right. So that is very important. And so on February 9th of 1825, the House elected John Quincy Adams as president. Okay. One thing that's important to look at here, in 1824, in this map over here to the right, Henry Clay's states that he won are in orange. Okay, so mainly Missouri, Kentucky, and Ohio. This bottom map in 1825 shows how the House of Representatives voted. And it's very important to see that Missouri, Kentucky, and Ohio, all who voted for Clay in 1824, voted for Adams in the House of Representatives runoff. So that's something very important to see there. Okay. We even see an important state like North Carolina here. Okay. North Carolina voted for Jackson in 1824, but once it got to the House, they switched to Crawford. Okay. So, the corrupt bargain. After Adams had won, he chose Henry Clay, who of course was Speaker of the House, to be his new Secretary of State. So it was definitely a I scratch your back, you scratch my back kind of deal. Jackson and his supporters saw this as proof of a corrupt bargain between Adams and Clay. Okay, so again, they kind of used their power in a bad way to kind of get what they wanted. That's what they're claiming this corrupt bargain is. Now, the corrupt bargain does have some effects. It convinced many Americans that politics in the United States was unfair. And it also led to the formation of two new political parties. Okay, so we get two new political parties out of the corrupt bargain. First, we get John Adams and the National Republican Party. Okay, now this is still not the Republican Party that we're used to today. Okay, but they still do call themselves the Republican Party. So after the election of 1824, the Democratic Republican Party splits into two different parties. President John Quincy Adams and his supporters, mainly Henry Clay, who is also pictured there, formed the National Republican Party. Okay, so the National Republicans believed in a strong federal government, which appealed to merchants and bankers. And guess what? This is just like the Federalists. Okay, we have a strong federal government who appealed to merchants and bankers. Okay, so again, ideals really aren't changing. They're really just kind of changing the name of their political party. John Quincy Adams, while he is president and part of the National Republican Party, follows an economic program called the American System. Okay, so let's get a little bit into that. The American System is, of course, the economic program John Quincy Adams followed during his presidency. The system, the American System, was influenced by Adams' Secretary of State, Henry Clay. Okay, so Clay used his power as Secretary of State to kind of push through this American system. So the American system consisted of three main actions by the federal government. First, it led to the creation of a national bank to simplify trade. Okay, this is the second bank of the United States. The United States also passed a tariff to make foreign goods more expensive to buy than American-made goods. Okay, so again, tariff, it's a tax put on imports. So they're trying to raise those prices of foreign goods so people would buy American goods. And last, the third thing they did is the spending of government money to build roads and canals in order to improve transportation. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about roads and canals when we come back from winter break. But here we see Quincy Adams using government money to build roads and canals to help improve transportation. So this is kind of when this gets going. All right, now Jackson's party. So we have Adams and the Republicans. Jackson and his supporters formed the Democratic Party. Now, this is the Democratic Party that we are used to today. Okay, so that party really formed in the 1820s here with Andrew Jackson. All right, now, Democrats believed in a small federal government with a limited power over the states. Okay, so a lot like the anti-federalists or the original Democratic Republicans under Jefferson. All right. The Democrats also championed the rights of the common man. Okay, so the Democratic Party was formed to kind of represent those blue-collar, hardworking people, you know, that don't have a lot of money, that live out on the frontier. Okay, more the common man. And these beliefs, okay, the small federal government, limited power over the states, the rights of the common man, these beliefs become known as Jacksonian Democracy. Okay, so Jacksonian, obviously named after Jackson, and democracy, okay, Freedom's Democratic Party. That's where they kind of get that name. Now, where the Republican Party appeals to merchants and bankers, the Democratic Party appeals to factory workers and farmers. Again, more of your lower middle class, hardworking, working every day kind of people. Okay, so Jacksonian Democracy was especially popular in the South. Okay, Jackson's from Tennessee. All right, he is very popular in the South. Southerners opposed Adams' American system because they believe it benefited northern states more than southern states. Again, with those tariffs, Southerners really aren't doing so much trading as they are farming or working in factories. Of course, there's not going to be a whole lot of roads because it's still very poor in the South. Okay. Slave owners also supported the Democratic Party because they were afraid the federal government would end slavery. Okay, so here we are in the 1820s. We're starting to kind of get into this mindset of the federal government may take away slavery at some point. Okay, that scares a lot of slave owners and Southerners. So they know with Jackson that won't happen. That's not going to be touched. He himself is a slave owner, so they kind of start to support him. All right, so we get into the election of 1828. During the election, Jackson and his supporters criticized Adams. They considered him an aristocrat who gave the federal government too much power. Okay, an aristocrat is basically just a person who is born into wealth and power. They really don't have to work for anything. They're kind of just given everything. And to Jackson and his supporters, that's not who should be running the country. Adams, on the other hand, and his supporters criticized Jackson for violent incidents during his political career. That should be military career. Okay, his military career is what they kind of go after. And they also portrayed Jackson as a potential tyrant. Okay, so they were afraid that he would take too much power and start kind of ruling like the kings back in Great Britain. Okay, so well, let's go back and look at this map here. Obviously, a lot of blue for Jackson here, especially in the South. Adams in kind of this cream color, again, mainly in the North, a lot of support in the North, and there on the coast. So we'll see how it kind of turns out here. So participation increased in elections during the 1800s, and there's really a couple of reasons for this. First, states extended the right to vote to white males over 21 years old. So males who were 21 could now vote. A lot of states ended the law that required males to own property in order to vote. So as long as you were a white male over 21, you could start voting in elections here. And a lot of people came out to vote because of the appeal of Jacksonian democracy. Okay, so kind of what Jackson was promising people in his campaigns really brought out a lot of people to vote for him. So Jackson defeated Adams in both the popular vote and in the Electoral College, and went on to become the 7th president of the United States. Okay, so those are the elections of 1824 and 1828. All right, also looking at the formation of two new political parties with the National Republican Party and the Democratic Party. So we kind of see how Jackson has kind of become president here, and how Adams' presidency was very short-lived. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.